know your enemy and understand how they operate, and also to act accordingly.
You often hear this term being thrown around among Bitcoin developers, and that's because almost all Bitcoin development is about protecting against various adversaries. It's much more about security than about features in Bitcoin. Okay, but I'm here to tell you that adversarial thinking is not just for rockstar Bitcoin developers. It's for you and me. And hopefully I can shed some light on why it's important that Bitcoin users don't take things for granted. This clicker works suboptimal. So, suppose that you buy the most secure and safe car there is on the market. But then you take this car and you drive it at 200 kilometers per hour in the wrong direction. That's pretty stupid. You have to use the car in a safe way in order to have any use of the technical safety that's put into the car. And it's the same thing with Bitcoin, which is the safest and most secure currency out there. But if you cut corners when you use Bitcoin, that security is thrown out the window. Okay, so who's the adversary of Bitcoin then? It's really hard to know who's going to attack Bitcoin. But we can at least contemplate who's got the most resources and incentive to do so. And I'm not sure it's this drunk octopus. And I think you've guessed it. The state. Since Bitcoin threatens to remove the money printing privileges of nation states, chances are that some nation states will regard Bitcoin as an enemy and would want to destroy it. But what resources would they have? For example, Russia is waging a war against Ukraine. And it's been said that this war cost Russia about $2 billion per day. Per day. At least during the first few months of the war. So it's not unreasonable to think that a nation state that regards Bitcoin as an enemy would be willing to spend $2 billion per day to attack it. So how much is $2 billion then? Let's compare that number to Bitcoin's defense budget, which would be the cost of the global mining operation. And an upper bound for this cost of mining operation is probably what the blocks are worth. And a typical days of Bitcoin blocks is worth about $20 million. So Bitcoin's defense budget could be around $20 million today. That's just 1% of the attacker's budget. Of course, these numbers are far from exact. But we can at least say that a state can be immensely powerful with far more resources than Bitcoin has. So what can they do then? They can, of course, try to pull off the dreaded censorship attack, or also known as the 51% attack, where they constantly rewrite Bitcoin blocks with empty ones, effectively censoring all transactions, which makes Bitcoin useless for everyone. This is a plausible scenario, and if that happens, what I can do is to start mining myself or increase the fees of my transactions to incentivize other honest miners to come online and counter the attack. But honestly, if this plays out, it would be a really, really bad situation. It's like the nuclear approach. And it's an open question whether Bitcoin can survive this or not. We don't know. However, I think this is one of the last options that they will take, because it's expensive and hard. There are far easier and cheaper options out there that they'll do before they bring out the nukes, so to speak. And I will give you 4 examples of this. The first one is confiscation. If you keep your coins on a custodial wallet, for example, a centralized exchange, the state can easily confiscate your coins. This clicker, there you go. So keep your coins off custodial wallets. So if you freak out over quantum computers taking everyone's coin someday in the future, you should really freak out over the widespread use of custodial wallets today. And my second example is centralized verification. Maybe you do run a wallet that keeps your own keys on your own device, so you're in custody of your own coins. But you might outsource the verification of your coins to some centralized service. So you don't run your own full node, you trust someone else's full node. And that makes you an easy target for censorship and counterfeit coins. And you know the old saying, don't trust, verify. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is it. Run your own full node to verify every aspect of your own coins. My third example is bans. They can ban mining, holding, transacting in, or even mentioning Bitcoin. And you should prepare yourselves and think through what you'll do if that happens. I hope that I have the courage to disobey such immoral laws. We've already seen laws like this coming from China and other places, and we see a movement in the same direction here in the EU and in the US. Some people in the EU right now want to ban proof-of-work mining. I haven't been mining myself before, but if a ban like that happens, I will definitely start mining. And my last example is FUD. Fear, uncertainty, doubt. Campaigning can be a really effective way to deter people from using Bitcoin. It can be about the environment, or how Bitcoin is a bubble, or scary stuff about terrorism. But what you can do here is to stay on top of things. Educate yourself. Know your shit. Don't fall for bullshit. So these are just a few examples of things to think about, and there are plenty more that I don't talk about here. But they all have one thing in common. It's that while you take these countermeasures to protect yourself, you also, at the same time, help protect others, because you make the system as a whole stronger doing it. For example, if you keep your own coins on your own device, or keys on your own device, you protect yourself from theft, while at the same time you make it less attractive to attack custodial wallets, because there is less money there. Or, if you run a full node, you protect yourself from being lied to and being fed counterfeit coins, while at the same time you make it harder for attackers to enforce unwanted rules onto the network. For example, you make it harder for them to increase the 21 million Bitcoin supply cap that we all love. Or, if you have the courage to disobey a ban on Bitcoin transactions, you protect yourself by you protect yourself from government oppression, while at the same time you help make Bitcoin an escape hatch for others. Or, if you read up on Bitcoin and don't fall for FUD, you will keep using Bitcoin to protect your wealth from inflation and other bad stuff, while at the same time you make Bitcoin seem more attractive and legit to others. So, again, while you protect yourself, you also help protect others, because you make the system as a whole stronger. Or vice versa. If you don't do these things, you will make the system as a whole weaker for everyone. So, in a sense, if you're not thinking adversarially, you are the adversary. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Kalle. Yeah, another round of applause. Thank you.
Since 2013, institutions have trusted BitGo for their digital asset needs. Backed by Goldman Sachs and other top investors, BitGo brings together the best of Wall Street and Silicon Valley to deliver institutional-grade security, compliance, and financial services. Today, we support all major coins and blockchain protocols and process 20% of all on-chain Bitcoin transaction volume for over 1,500 of the world's top institutions. When it comes to crypto, institutions trust BitGo.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Magazine Analyst Desk, brought to you by BitGo. We are live at Bitcoin Amsterdam, and I'm joined by Ray Youssef to my left and CK Snarks all the way at the end of the table. Gentlemen, we just heard an excellent speech talking about adversarial thinking. Ray, would love your initial thoughts on just what you heard and anything further.
We are besieged, gentlemen. We are besieged from attacks from the front through regulation. We are besieged from attacks from the side through all these scams and manipulation. And most concerning of all, we're besieged from the back, the corruption of our own internal infantry. It's up to us to be stewards of our culture and to resist all this toxicity in the form of anti-Semitism, anti-feminism, and anti-everything. That's our mission.
It essentially seems like cancel culture just continues to grow, and we have to do our best to fight against it.
Absolutely. That is the internal struggle, and that's what will give us victory.
So I agree with Ray. Technically, I do think Bitcoin is a sound system, and I do think that the incentives align for Bitcoin to continue. The proof of work will continue to incentivize people to mine it. And I do think that if there is a real threat for Bitcoin, it's truly social engineering. It's FUD. It is let's call it inside actors who are trying to corrupt the narrative. Whatever it is, it's something that is more of a social and manipulative attack more than a technical one.
Absolutely, and I think that leads in perfectly to what we're about to see in our next panel, which is Bitcoin's actual media perception. We're going to hear from, as CK mentioned earlier, 2 Bitcoin media people as well as 2 non-Bitcoin media people. In fact, one of them, Jemima Kelly, recently wrote an article for Financial Times kind of disparaging and taking some shots at Bitcoin. Ray, do you have any thoughts or comments on just the way Bitcoin is being depicted by mainstream media right now?
I think everyone has the same perspective on that. We don't appreciate the FUD, but I'll give you some perspective from my own experiences on the street. In 2019, we did a campus tour in Africa, 8 different universities in Kenya and South Africa. And every time I mentioned Bitcoin, everyone just kept looking at me with this kind of stare. And I didn't understand what was going on, but the more I talked to them, I began to understand that everyone in Africa has either lost money in a cryptocurrency scam or knows someone that has lost money. Whether it's an MLM scam coming out of Russia or wherever, or a crypto mining scam or whatever, everyone's been burned. So they associate Bitcoin with speculation and scams. And I had to fight against that and say, hold on a second, this is not just a means for speculation. You don't have to give me money here. This is a means of exchange to help you do the things that you have not been able to do, to help you break out of the system of economic apartheid that you, your neighbors, your family have found yourselves in for the past 100 years. And once they hear that and they see there's a potential for making money, they get very excited.
No, absolutely. I mean, you also do so much work in helping to bank the unbanked. And we brought up earlier today how Kanye West was recently unbanked, and it seems as though in America there's a lot of attempts at taking shots at, if we don't agree with what you think, you don't get our service. PayPal recently released a fake update that is still found in their terms and agreements. It seems as though these attempts at taking shots at Americans seems to be coming over as well. Do you have any thoughts as well on that?
I think it's pretty scary to see private companies giving fines for thought crimes right now, but that is the future, so I suggest you cancel them before they cancel you.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, the only way to cancel something like PayPal or your bank is with Bitcoin. That's the only way you take it into your own hands. And you said, Ray, that some of the Africans and folks in, let's just call it, less banked countries that, Paxful is really impactful in, they see an opportunity to make money. I kind of would love to rephrase it. They see an opportunity to have money for the first time.
Yeah.
Because, I would say like Bitcoin's the best money anyone's ever had, but it's also free and available to anyone. And for most of the developing world, that's just been something that's been unavailable to them.
Absolutely. And once they see it's available and they understand how to get it and how to use it and they get their first Bitcoin, that's when the magic happens.
No, absolutely. It's a beautiful thing, especially the work that you and your team do, both with Paxful as well as Built with Bitcoin. I want to shamelessly plug one of my favorite charities out there.
Thank you.
Ray, I do want to give you the opportunity to touch on a little bit before we go to our next panel of some of the work that you guys are doing over there.
Well, we've built about 11 schools and wells across the world right now. Most of them are in Africa. We just helped refurbish one in El Salvador. My mission is to build 100 schools across the world. I've had that mission ever since New Orleans, where I went down to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. I met these 5 nuns, and we helped get the first school in the city to open up. It was the New Orleans Cathedral Academy. It was a 3-week adventure by myself and those 5 nuns. And big shout out to Mary Rose and the sisters of the New Orleans Cathedral Academy. You guys are heroes. Because we opened up that school, the police and fire department could finally come back into the city because they had a place to put their children. And that's actually what allowed the city to grow. It showed me the power of education in that small way. And now we're trying to do it across the world. My dream is to have a school for gifted children, African X-Men style, Professor Xavier with hair, preferably with the ability to walk still, a decent amount of muscle tone.
I love it. I love it. I love the mission. I love the vision.
Thank you, brother.
Ray, I've been asking all of our guests that have been coming on the analyst desk. We have some viewers that are hardcore Bitcoiners, and we have some viewers that are still learning about Bitcoin. What is one thing that you want some of our audience members to know or understand about Bitcoin?
The best thing that Bitcoin taught me is what money actually is. Money is work, human work encapsulated to transcend time and space. That's all it is. Why is that important? Because we haven't had that. And once you go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, you begin to understand historically how we got to this point, how these small castes of dominant men that rule the world, how they've come to this point where they have the world in a headlock right now, how they managed to convince us that human nature is weak and bad, but it's not. It's quite the contrary. First, they took control of the financial pillar. And with that, they can control the levers of power, and they can buy media control, which allows them to control the minds of the people and eventually get to the third pillar, political control, which gives them the ability to control the militaries and thus consolidate power. We have to take the exact same path, and we're on it right now. Fix the money problem, and everything else will be fixed.
Absolutely. Fix the money, fix the world. CK, there's something that Ray said that really stuck with me that I think is very important. I'd love for you to share with our audience. How important is answering the question of what is money in your search in understanding Bitcoin?
Oh, it's the most important. And honestly, I personally think that we live in a world where the majority of the planet is financially illiterate. And that starts with not even being able to identify what is money, what is good money, and why is it important. And that extends into really poor financial behavior, whether that's falling for scams, whether that's credit card debt, whatever. So I think Bitcoin is the strongest mechanism for financial education in the world, and it is sweeping the world by storm. Q.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching this Analyst Desk recap. We will be back after this next panel. Be sure to like and subscribe down below.